For decades, they were tragic cold cases, horrific crimes committed against two young girls, with no one facing justice. Through years of agony, their mothers refused to give up, refused to let investigators forget. And today, at last, they stood with police as they announced first-degree murder charges. The CBC's Chris Brown has more for us on this from Vancouver. Chris.
Well, Peter, this is a stunning development for two mothers who spent a lifetime trying to keep their daughter's memory in the public eye and prodding investigators not to give up. With photos of their murdered children beside them, SHARI GREER and Madeleine Linero tried to put decades of heartbreak and loss into words.
And no matter what happens, and no matter what you do in your life, that hurt never goes away. But you know what? You always have to move on.
I want you to know these two little girls, Monica and Kathryn-Mary, made a difference in this world while they were here.
Kathryn-Mary Herbert was 11 years old. In September 1975, she was returning from dinner at a friend's house in Abbotsford. She'd been given a ride on a friend's bike and dropped off within sight of her house, and then she disappeared. Her body was found months later in the woods. Her skull had been crushed. 3 years later, Monica Jack, who was just 12, was riding her bike on a road near Nicola Lake in Merritt when she vanished. It was only after a forest fire 17 years later that her body was found.
The totality of 3 decades or over 3 decades of investigative efforts resulted in 2 murder charges against 67-year-old Garry Taylor Handlen.
For people familiar with both cases, it was an I told you so moment. Handlen had been on the police radar early on. He was a convicted sex offender. He knew the Herbert family, and he drove a white car similar to one seen near the crime scene. He was also connected to Merritt, near where Jack disappeared. Documentary filmmaker David Ridgen even tried to track Handlen down for an item that ran on The National.
Basically, I went up to the door. You're Garry Taylor Handlen? Yes. Do you know SHARI GREER? No. Do you know Kathryn-Mary Herbert? No. Were you convicted in a case in BC, door slams?
We obtained these more recent photos of Garry Handlen. Police won't say what it was that cracked the case. Was it a sting or a confession or some sort of forensic breakthrough? But whatever it was, police said without the mother's dogged pursuit, it would never have happened.
There's been a constant throughout this investigation, and it's been SHARI GREER. SHARI has challenged us, inspired us, and relentlessly pursued justice for her daughter.
And what I would have liked Monica to be, what she wanted to be, is what I am today. I'm a social worker. She planned to be a social worker because always she said, I just want to be just like you, Mom.
When this is over, I'm going to have a well-deserved breakdown. I will forever hear my heart break. And by the way, there's no such thing as a cold case to the families.
In hindsight, it seems astounding that it did take police so long to move on Handlen, but losing some key bits of evidence over the years may have played a role. Monica Jack's case was also part of the so-called Highway of Tears investigation, involving more than a dozen missing or murdered women. And tonight, having Handlen's photo out there, police are hoping it may trigger some new leads on other old cases. Peter.
Chris, thank you. Chris Brown in Vancouver tonight. Well, for an in-depth look at the case, head to our website. Garden of Tears, the 2009 documentary that Chris mentioned, is now posted there. To watch it, go to cbcnews.ca/thenational.